Fargo, the new virtual assistant from Wells Fargo, makes banking faster and easier. Like this.
Fargo, what's my checking account routing number?
And this.
Fargo, turn off my debit card.
And this.
Fargo, what did I spend on groceries last month?
And that's just the beginning. Do you, Fargo? You can. In the Wells Fargo mobile app. Learn more at wellsfargo.com/getfargo.
Terms and conditions apply. Your mobile carrier's availability and message and data rates may apply. Wells Fargo Bank, N.A., member FDIC.
Excited for a road trip? Start it off right with auto coverage from American Family Insurance. J.D. Power ranked us #1 in customer satisfaction with the auto insurance shopping experience among mid-size insurers. Get a quote at amfam.com.
American Family Insurance.
For J.D. Power 2021 award information, visit jdpower.com/awards. American Family Mutual Insurance Company, SI, and its operating companies, 6000 American Parkway, Madison, Wisconsin.
All right, before we get into the show, let's just do a little bit of business here. If you're looking for motorcycle parts, you need to check out Old Bike Barn over at oldbikebarn.com. They got everything that you need for whether it's your vintage Japanese bike, a Harley, a chopper, cafe racer, whatever it is, they got it over there. It's all organized by make, model, type, super easy to navigate, super easy to get around. They also have their own line of leather handmade goods and knives and whatnot under the White Knuckler brand. But yeah, check them out over at Old Bike Barn at oldbikebarn.com. On Instagram, simply at Old Bike Barn. Now, if you are in the need of CBD oil, which is super popular now, and you can get it anywhere. Unfortunately, with that, there's a lot of crappy, subpar product out there. You don't know where it's made, what it's made from, what's in there, what's been added to it. You need to go check out Cradle Lake Clear over at cradlelakeclear.com. Only the most quality organic ingredients made by the most sterile, clean practices, and check them out at cradlelakeclear.com. They go through their whole process of how the CBD oil is made. I use it almost nightly, and it helps me sleep like a baby. It's super good if you have insomnia or any kind of inflammation, like soreness. If you got stress, anxiety, things like that, helps with it all. So check them out over at cradlelakeclear.com. One of the best in the business and the most clean CBD oil that you're going to get. At the same token, if you need CBD oil for your pet, maybe you got a dog, it's a fucking jerk off, or you got a shitty cat that likes to attack, or you got a nervous pet, or you got a horse that likes to kick people in the face, you need to check out vetcs.com. They are the top manufacturer of CBD oil for pets. So they have a canine line, they have a feline line, and they have a horse line. What would that be, an equestrian line? Yeah, so check them out over at vetcs.com. Now, if you happen to be in the unfortunate situation where you find yourself in a motorcycle accident, you need to go once you're stabilized, you know what I mean? If it's an easy accident, just call Law Tigers right away. If you're hospitalized or something, stabilize yourself and then give Law Tigers a call. Lawtigers.com, or go to Facebook and type in Law Tigers and your state so you can get in touch with the most local office for you. I hope that's one of the sponsors that you never have to use, but if you do ever find yourself in a motorcycle accident, they are a law firm that's founded by riders for riders, and all they do is specialize in motorcycle accident and motorcycle injury cases. So they got your back. If you're looking for clothing, winter's upon us, getting cold out there, maybe you need a scarf or a hoodie, or you live somewhere tropical and just need another t-shirt, go check out Omerta over at omertamia.com, the most legit and real streetwear brand that there is. And they print everything in-house for the most part. All the shirts are screened in-house, and they use USA-made apparel wherever possible. So go check them out, omertamia.com, OMERTAMIA, and on Instagram at omertamia. And they even got an app on the Apple Store, and I'm sure it's on Android as well. I don't have an Android, so I don't know. Same thing, you're looking for more clothing, but you're a little twisted, you're into dark arts or weird shit, but you're not really goth, you're just like a little sinister, twisted dude. Like I said, you applauded when Ozzy bit the head off a bat. You're stoked on that. You play Beatles records backwards, Black Sabbath records at Black Sabbath 45s at 33. I don't know. You do weird shit. You read Aleister Crowley books. I don't know. But you're also into like things like choppers and custom show vans, 70s boogie vans and stuff like that. Street weaponry, whatever it is that strikes your fancy. If it's weird shit, you need to check out Heavy over at heavy.bigcartel.com. And on Instagram at Heavy Clothing. My man Zach Doom has what you need. You know what I mean? So check him out. You into psychedelics, weird shit, you know? Fuck yeah, man. There you go. If you need more information about anything motorcycle related, you need to check out Chop Cult over at chopcult.com. They're the biggest information clearinghouse and online message board for the motorcycling community, especially in regards to custom bikes. But they got the biggest online message board out there. It's all broken up by topic, so you can easily kind of find the group you want to peruse. They have an online swap meet where you can buy, sell, and trade parts. And they got a events page, which is rad, where you can find out what's going on in your local community or all around the world in regards to motorcycle-related events. Pitchfork over at pitchforkny.com, Pitchfork New York. Check them out online. They have and they're on Instagram at pitchforkny. They're the clothing brand that your favorite bands rock, right? And they also have a record label, and they put out really good hardcore and punk rock and metal records. So check them out. Pitchforkny.com. I do these things off the top of my head. I don't have any scripts written down, so crucify me when I screw up. But yeah, if you want to support this show, go over to Big Truth podcast.com. All the there's all kinds of information up there. And all the shows are up there. And if you want to financially support the show, check out patreon.com/bigtruth. There's 4 different levels of support that you can do, all affordable. It helps this show keep the lights on here, keep the bills paid, keep the show going and growing. And big respect to all my Patreon subscribers. We gave them on the last episode. I had Lenny do a special performance just for them. Got more stuff planned for this year coming up, some rad shit. So get in early so you get access to more shit. Patreon.com/bigtruth. And last but not least, if you need anything else related to motorcycles, especially if you live in the Northeast, I got a full service brick and mortar motorcycle shop, and we do online sales as well. That's Chopperhead over at chopperhead.com. Spelt in the most massholer way, CHOPPAHEAD, located at 13 County Road, East Freetown, Massachusetts. Give us a call, 508-995-6764. We got whatever you need, whatever parts you need for your bike. If we can't get it, you probably don't want it, and I can have everything shipped right to you. So if you don't see it on the website, we got access to thousands and thousands of parts. I don't have time to put all that on a website. We're a full-service motorcycle shop. We do everything from oil changes to build you a full custom bike. So I don't got time to develop the website as much as I should. So until then, just give us a call if you need something. Shoot us an email, chopperheadcustoms@gmail.com. And we'll get you all situated. All right, and with that, I'm going to drop off here, and we're going to get into today's episode right now.
Ignition sequence start. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. We have a liftoff.
Yes, once again, we have liftoff. I want to thank you for tuning in to this episode of the Big Truth Podcast. And today I'm stoked to have my man, Christopher Garetano, on with me. He is a filmmaker. He's like me. He's got his hands in a lot of different things. He's a filmmaker, a producer. He's made documentary movies. He's made TV shows. He's a host on TV shows. He's also host on a new podcast called Off to the Witch. And so and he's into a lot of weird shit like we are. So I definitely want to give a warm welcome on the podcast to my man, Chris. Chris, broadcasting live. Where are you at? Long Island, New York or something?
No, I left Long Island.
Okay.
8 years ago. I lived in Michigan for a couple of years, and I've been in Florida ever since.
Oh, okay. So you're smart. You went somewhere warm.
Yeah, man.
Get out of
yeah,
winter.
well, warm enough. It's going to be in the high 30s, I think, this upcoming weekend.
Oh,
So,
might be warmer here.
yeah, man.
What part of Florida are you in?
I'm on the Gulf Coast,
Okay.
about a little north of Tampa.
Okay, nice. And did you get in when it was still relatively like cheap to get down there? Because I know it's been everything's been crazy, and I heard Florida got like skyrocketed up real estate wise.
I did. I got here when you could rent a decent house for like $800, but obviously that went up since then. I'm going into my 6th year living out here, and yes, things got crazy last year, but I think that's going to die down a little bit in terms of, at least stabilize. But luckily everyone's safe out here. I haven't had any hurricanes destroy me or ravage my world, and I think I'm sticking around here for a little while.
Nice. So you're digging it?
Yeah, man. I didn't think I was going to. I mean, I lived in New York City for like 7 years. I grew up on Long Island. I lived in Michigan. I didn't expect to be out here this long, but I like it.
Yeah, New York's crazy. Boston, New York, like any of the big hub cities, it's so crazy to live in now. Like you can't really move. Like if you wanted to be in Manhattan now, you'd have to have like 3 roommates in like a 800 square foot apartment, or you'd have to be so independently wealthy. It's just bananas, Yeah,
and even if you were, why would you want to? I love that city, or at least I loved it in the 90s when I lived there.
Yeah.
But right now, I don't want to live there. I miss it. I miss when I lived there. Different time and place in the world. You go see the Ramones in St. Mark's Place. It's a different time. So.
Yeah. See, when St. Mark's Place still had a lot of dirty needles just sticking in the ceiling.
it did have some character.
Yeah, before CB's was John Varvatos and whatnot. But yeah, man, for sure. So. The reason why, I definitely got in touch is because, I've seen a couple episodes of Strange World. I haven't seen Dark Files, which was your other show that you produced. And I did see, your film, Montauk, Chronicles. And then I think I heard you on the Confessionals or something, and then that's how I found your podcast. And I was like, man, me and this guy got a lot in common. I know we must have grown up in the same time and been subject to a lot of the same influences. So I definitely wanted to have you on. And this podcast has a lot to do with, we say motorcycles, music, and high weirdness. And by high weirdness, I mean whether it's like paranormal stuff or, supernatural stuff and investigators and people that are involved in those worlds. So we're kind of across the board. It's kind of like how Joe Rogan is, but with like instead of UFC fighters, I'll have instead of comedians and UFC fighters, I have people from our subcultures.
I love it.
Yeah, but. So I guess like to start off, I know you've done a lot of production work, and a lot of it's kind of thematically in the world of like strange stuff, like whether it's paranormal or supernatural. Let me ask you start off with a grand tour chicken or egg situation. Like, did you get into video and film production because of your interest in that stuff, or did you get into the film stuff first, and then and then the supernatural kind of stuff was what, you just decided on as a topic or a subject?
Yeah, that's a good question. I got into it all around that same time in those formative years. My parents owned a video store growing up. They were movie obsessed. They took us to the drive-in. We got to see every movie you could think of. They would take us in their station wagon, and I'd sit on top of the station wagon. They'd watch any movie that they would take us to, and we would just watch on top. So I was exposed to maybe movies I shouldn't have seen at a very young age, but and they right, I'm sure he went through the same thing. And I got really into special effects makeup, and so I was making masks and severed fingers and severed limbs and Fangoria magazine. Back then it's like hard. It's hard for people that grew up in the internet age to understand that there wasn't much access to behind the scenes unless you were in terms of horror movies, unless you were reading that magazine. And that magazine was a taboo. There were, newsstands and like Walden Books and stuff that sometimes would cover those magazines up or put other magazines in front of them because the covers were so gruesome, like from George Romero's Day of the Dead, and there were faces being ripped off. And it was just such an explosive magazine back then. And I don't know what attracted me to that 100%, but I know maybe my exposure to horror films at an early age, my dad making himself up every Halloween, the making of Michael Jackson's Thriller with John Landis, like Rick Baker doing the makeup in that, and then getting into George Romero and Tom Savini, the director of Dawn of the Dead and the special effects artist and stuntman for Dawn of the Dead. I mean, that stuff just blew my mind as a kid. It just blew my mind. And around the same time, there were reruns of the Leonard Nimoy show In Search Of, which I was also obsessed with, because I mentioned that fine line between fiction and reality. I'm experiencing all these movies, and when you're a kid, you're like, you think everything is real. I thought, Godzilla lived in Japan. I really thought I thought those monsters were real. And if you go to Japan, you're going to see the giant, you're going to see Mothra, you're going to see Godzilla and all that stuff as a little kid.
Yeah.
And so you start to get to the point where, okay, people make this stuff. And I think that's where I was for a very long time. And the movies were just a device to film the special effects. And then as I got into high school, I got serious about directing, because I felt like makeup artists were, I grew up around a makeup artist. He passed away when he was 40, unfortunately. His name was Jay Wells, and great guy. And I was like 12 when I met him, and he took me into his shop, and he'd be playing all this classic rock and, doing makeup and putting things together. He'd be smoking a joint while he'd be sculpting a Frankenstein head and stuff. That's who I grew up around. And that was my whole world. And then finally I realized, look, the only way I'm really going to tell a story is if I become a filmmaker. And then in college, it was like, I got back to the point where I felt, I had a couple of paranormal experiences. I don't know if we called them paranormal back then. I experienced a haunting when I was 14, or at least looking back in hindsight, that's what I thought it was then. And happened for 2 nights. And between all of that and just the fascination that some of this stuff could be real, I certainly wanted to approach it in documentary form. And really my first documentary about something in that world was Montauk Chronicles, and that led to everything else. Yeah. Seems like it all came full circle. Oh, and I forgot to mention, and I'm sure this happened to you too, I was obsessed with the Mysteries of the Unknown books. Everything from the Golden Book of the Unexplained to the Enchanted World. Do you remember that book series that Vincent Price advertised on TV when we were kids?
Yep.
I had that.
I didn't have that one. I had the Time Life one, but then I had this other one. I don't know if you remember this. And I a couple years ago, I rebought it. I got the whole collection. Do you remember one called Man, Myth, and Magic?
Yes, I do.
I got the
think
whole
I still
collection.
have a few of those.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. I bought it on eBay. Someone had the whole collection, all the encyclopedias. I'm like, oop, score, got them.
Right, and you sit and poured over that artwork in there, and those stories just blew my mind. So I think it all was coming together around the same time. It was the as you know, it's like that stuff juxtaposed to all the films you loved at the time. It was like suggesting that stuff is real. And I think that was even more fascinating and mysterious, and, looking up at the night sky and wondering if something was hovering over you. When we were kids, UFOs and the Men in Black were terrifying things. Yeah. They were really spooky stuff. And I have not seen that portrayed well since maybe the movie Fire in the Sky or Communion with Christopher Walken. There hasn't really been, because it's either been these big action tentpole films like Independence Day or the X-Files, which I liked a lot.
Yeah.
But, but it goes a little further. And these days it seems more like sport, like the UFO hunter reality shows, which if I'm going to approach that subject matter now, I want to take it back to something that really worked for me, because it's still such a mystery, regardless of them, regardless of the government's right now telling us this stuff is real. Okay. I mean, I never thought I would actually see that in my lifetime, that they're admitting to it now.
How bananas is that, man? How bananas is it that it was during COVID, they came out and said, yeah, there's things we can't explain. And then there was some government engineer in the New York Times saying, oh, we have craft that aren't from this world. And no one's giving a shit. It's crazy, dude. I'm like, it was hidden on page 8 or whatever. I'm like, what is going on? I'm like, are they just messing around with us, or are they trying to like, pave the way to some disclosure? Who knows what's going on? It's bananas. But just the general lack of interest, like in media coverage on those are two bombshells, man. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because we're bombarded by
All
things
day.
on a daily basis. Yeah, you have like these active shooters like twice a month, and you have these political fights and riots and all this
Ukraine
crazy shit happening. Yeah, just nonstop. And then, oh, by the way, aliens are real. Well, we don't know if they're aliens. There's something from another dimension. And it's like, wait a second, what is happening here?
You can't just poo-poo that, put that on put it out there and then not follow up. Yeah.
No, and yeah, do I think they're preparing us for something? I really do. I don't think that's just a distraction. They would use other stuff to distract us. Yeah. They use like the Kardashians to distract us or something,
Yeah.
Like, I mean, those people pay for their press, but we live in an exciting time, but it's kind of scary too, because imagine 5 years from now, we find out that everything we've learned in motion pictures and story and all of this paranormal stuff is real. Like, it's all real.
Yeah, I mean, we in just in the first 10 minutes here of us talking, like, you've hit on so many things that I want to follow up and back up on. And before we get too deep into stuff, like, I just wanted to give you a shout out for having one of the editors of Fangoria on your podcast. That was a super interesting one, because I was one of those kids too that fiended for that. And I think sometimes I pine for those days. Like, it's great now, like, that there's so much information and media, and if you want to see the behind the scenes or the making of any movie or anything, like, any kind of media is just at your fingertips with the internet and all these, beyond just cable, subscription TV and whatever's there. But I think there was something magical about when we grew up, where you just you had one magazine for the month and you had to wait for the next issue. And then you just scoured and poured through that magazine and then found whatever reading material you could that was related to things. And I felt like we probably, it was more, I don't know, for lack of a better word, magical to us and more arcane. And it was like knowledge you had to find. And I think you appreciated it more, just like hunting down this stuff, especially back then in like the 70s and 80s. It wasn't, you had to like really seek this stuff out. And I remember going through Fangoria and then going into the back and ordering like fake blood and like supplies of like for gore makeup from this, I think it was called like Full Moon Productions in like Schenectady, New York or something. Like, I remember all that, you know what I mean? And I haven't thought about that in years, but as one of the things about, and just giving you a shout out on your podcast, that like, listen to them or the guy that wrote Gore Shriek and penned Gore Shriek, like, it brought back a lot of childhood memories, man. So, and we'll talk about the podcast as well too, but I'm just giving context while you brought up a couple of things, Oh,
I appreciate it. Yeah, I'll continue to do that because I love diving into that. Well, I feel like for whatever you want to create, whether it be your podcast, a piece of artwork, a movie, writing, it's like you can dip into everything you just described. I think it's a technique, to tell you the truth, or even just for good energy in your soul, is don't shy away from those things that you're nostalgic about like that. Dive into it. Keep it around as an oracle to dive into, even for therapy, if you're stressed out. Like, I have all those old Fangoria magazines. No one but you and I and people like us would even understand, And if I sit and flip through one of those and chill out in my office, it brings me back to a place. And then you've got this amorphous energy you can use. You can use it just to chill, or you could use it and apply it. I'm writing a horror film right now, and it's like, hey, listen, I'm grateful that I'm in a position where I'm going to make this movie. And I'm not going to skimp on this thing. I'm not going to make a piece of shit. I'm going to go and make the best movie I ever dreamt of. And tapping into that energy helps. It really does. I believe in that so much.
Oh yeah, man. I do that with everything. And I'm not like a hoarder, but I kind of am like a hoarder for nostalgia, like things that give you that energy. Like, I'll do the same thing with like Thrasher magazines from like the 80s, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, man.
Or the old bike magazines or whatever, man. And I get into that and I'm like, oh, stuff from your youth that helped form you. But one thing I wanted to talk about real quick, just as an aside, because you mentioned like seeing movies in the drive-in that you probably shouldn't. When I was a kid, we were driving by the drive-in in my town, and they were playing Porky's on that thing. Like, you think that would happen nowadays? Like, holy shit! Like, you couldn't even make that movie now, for one, and two, like, to have that on the big screen. And I remember as a kid, I was like, and it was one of the scenes where you could see a girl like naked or whatever, and I was so stoked because as a kid I was like, what the hell's going on? And I would always try and make my father drive by the drive-in when we were going home. Like, instead of taking the highway, I'm like, no, go Route 6, so we could go by the drive-in, because I always wanted to see what we were going to see. But the other thing too is, like, when you're a kid, like you were talking about, I just wanted to touch on, because I think it's important, like those things, like having that sense of wonder and curiosity about things, but also, being terrified by them. I remember seeing the, and seeking out the weird stuff, but I remember seeing, there was a movie about the Bermuda Triangle that I forced my father to bring me to when I must have been like 7 or something. And I can't even remember who narrated it, but it was in theaters, but it was kind of a documentary, but it was in theaters. And I remember being so freaked out by that I couldn't even sleep for 3 nights. And my father was like, I'm not bringing you any more of this stuff. And then of course he did. But I wish stuff would terrify me like that nowadays. You know what I mean? Because it sucks, but it's also like, it's like a thrill, like a high, I guess,
Right. And here's the thing, like, only the people that experienced what you and I experienced while watching those moments could tap into that energy and bring it back to other people. And that is certainly what I'm reminding myself on a daily basis when I'm writing these movies or even working on something. And that I want, even the podcast, it's like I want to bring that for other people, because I know it would probably be, for the most part, universally received the same way we received it. Even the youth, I think, I see them going back. Like, kids are going to Target and Best Buy and buying records and record players. Kids.
Oh yeah.
So there's something about that's that completely, records will never go away now. It completely survived the technology evolution.
Yeah.
And there's something about the ritual of putting the record on the player. I got tons of records, new and old, and It's like, you know the deal. And same with what we're talking about.
Holding it and reading the liner notes and looking at the art close up, and it's a whole package. It's I have a lot of stuff digitally that I own the vinyl of, but I have more of an appreciation for the vinyl because it's an actual object that you like hold and possess, and you can, you can, there's a ritual, like you said, to putting it on the record player. But, I used to like to read I'd even read like the thanks list, and I'm like, oh, this is who they're thanking. I probably like these bands too. And then go hunt those records, because it was, pre-internet, for me when I'm talking about this, but, and all of it was just like, seeking stuff out and taking all of it in. Like, it was a whole experience with that. And that was the same thing with movies too. Like, you just look at the cover and you read the back of it and you're like, get all excited, there's anticipation for it before you even pop it into the VHS player,
That's why physical media is not going away. It's as much as they want to phase it out, it's not happening. Netflix will never replace the collection of movies I have in my own home library. It's not happening.
Yeah.
And I wonder, though, this is, I don't know if you've tried virtual reality, but it really is something else, even now.
Yeah, I tried the PlayStation one. It's bananas.
Yeah. Now, the other things you can do is, let's say we collaborate on a documentary, or I make a documentary, or you make a movie, I make a movie.
Yeah.
You can go into something called big screen right now, walk inside the lobby, and there are avatars walking around, but people are operating them and you're operating your own. And you come in and say, hey, in about an hour, I'm going to play a little horror film I made. Who wants to check it out? It's in room so-and-so. Punch into this. Here's the code. Then all of a sudden you punch into that code and you're sitting in a theater with all of these people, and you can look at them. You look at their avatars, and you can intro the movie, and now you're sitting in a giant theater, Ziegfeld Theater, New York style, big giant screen, and you can put on the movie for people. And I think Hangouts and stuff like that in the future, it won't be such a bad thing. There's one bad component to this, but I think that type of community and enjoying something, even though you can say it's not tangible, eventually it will be. You'll feel it. You'll be able to. It'll be like you won't be able to tell the difference. So there are positives that come for something like this. And that world is going to be amazing. It's going to be really tempting to, you know, to dive into. The issue
at that point is now you're in the matrix, right? You don't want to unplug.
Right. And okay. So that's where we're going though. Because right now it's just a visual trick. And, you know, once Elon Musk releases Neuralink.
Oh, I don't know how I feel about it.
Yeah, same. I might hold off on it. It's going to be really tempting though. It's probably going to be the greatest temptation because everything will be available to you. I wonder, you know, like all the guests listening right now, like ask yourself, first you have to imagine the possibilities. And it's everything that you just said, the Matrix. It's basically anything you would ever want and then only could imagine available to you, all senses hooked in. And you won't be able to tell the difference between fantasy and reality. And it's all yours. It's all available to you. I think most people would just dive right in.
Yeah. I mean, I try not to be an early adopter of anything though, because they refine it and make it so much better. Like, 3 weeks, three generations in. And I'll probably wait. If I get Alzheimer's start kicking in, I'm like, all right, throw that thing in. Let's reverse this.
Right. That's how they'll get everybody in the end. Because nobody really wants to. I mean, I don't know. I don't know if you've ever thought about that, but it's like moving on to that next plane. What if it's amazing?
Yeah.
I'm not that I want to go anytime soon, but I'm just saying, like, we all have to accept that at some point.
Oh, absolutely.
But technology might keep you alive
a lot longer.
Indefinitely, yeah.
The crazy thing too is with that Neuralink is the thing. I'm naturally a little suspicious of people like Tesla comes out, right? And they put that car out and they're like, oh yeah, but if you want this, you got to pay $4,000 for this license, and if you want this, you got to pay like $2,000. So, what if you get into Neuralink and they're like, oh yeah, but if you want the life-saving Alzheimer's module, that's a $5,000 module. You know what I mean? Like you got to pay to plug that in. You know what I mean? Like I feel like it's going to get very monetized very quickly. And it's going to be only certain people are going to have access to certain things. I don't think it's going to be a big, I don't know. I don't see that it's going to be a very, I think it's going to happen because there's money to be made, or even if it's not him, it's going to be his board, the people on the board for that, are going to want to monetize it.
Yeah. I mean, obviously people are after him at the moment, but, sure. I think, I don't know, and the question before I was about to say, I suppose he would want to make it available to everyone, is that who can you trust? What are we seeing on this parade that's in front of us? Are we really seeing what we think we're seeing? Is this all one big ruse? Yeah. I don't walk around paranoid, but just a healthy amount of paranoia.
Yeah. Well, a healthy amount of questioning what's going on, and if that hasn't been instilled in people over the course of the last couple of years, I don't know what will. But it very much intensified my general mistrust of things, whether it's just general media or anything beyond it. You know what I mean? Because I'm like, we're just constantly, like you said, we're constantly getting bombarded, but we're also constantly getting lied to. Like, you know what I mean? And it's been never more apparent. I almost pined for the days when there was like 3 channels and they were all just reporting news, like, for an hour a day, and then you could go about your regular life for the rest of the day.
Yeah, I wonder. Like, you have to go back and listen to it the way we received it. I could give a damn about. I didn't even care about politics at all. I still don't. The only reason why I do now is because obviously something's going on, and like you just said, we are being lied to. That is clear. And if anyone doesn't believe that, please wake up. There is a lot going on right now, and hopefully it gets revealed. Hopefully it gets squashed and things change.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I don't either, man. But we just keep plugging on, you know what I mean? And hopefully, I can't wait till we get some disclosure, man, because I think life will get way more interesting really fast, like overnight, if they come out with what's really going on. Like,
yeah, well, hopefully it's nothing like what we've seen in certain films, because it's like, if you wake up tomorrow and there's a giant mothership hovering over New York, Los Angeles, Detroit, Chicago, we might be in trouble.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. Yep. and then like head to the mountains. But hey, you mentioned that you did have as a child a couple of paranormal experiences. One being a haunting. Like, what did you go through when you were a kid?
Well, all right. So I grew up with ghost stories, of course, and movies about hauntings. I mean, the real Amityville house was only 10, 15 minutes away from my own house. And, as a teen, we would drive up to the Amityville house and sit on the front lawn and bring Ouija boards and stuff in the middle of the night.
Yeah.
We did that,
I've been over there. There's a music venue right around the corner from there. So we've been over there a couple of times.
Oh, yeah, no, I know that one too, man.
Yeah.
So I grew up with ghost stories in the house. My mother, we had a cousin that died in a car accident, and my mom was trying on one of her sweaters, and it was like the dead of winter, and her bedroom door, she was in her bedroom, and the bedroom door, it got cold in the room first, and then the bedroom door slammed shut. There was no breeze in the house, nothing like that. And she said she felt her presence, and this was some time after the accident. And not too long after that, and I'm not blaming it on anything, but I went through that dark phase like a lot of us that grew up listening to heavy metal and hardcore music, watched horror films, really, some really dark ones too. And then I started getting, I got a book from New York City called Magical Formulary that was given to me, and then I got my hands on some black magic books.
Yeah.
And
did you get the Necronomicon? Because every kid I knew had the Necronomicon.
We had that too. I always question its validity, though.
Yeah. The Mad Arab, yeah.
Yeah, but other ones, Aleister Crowley, like all that stuff. Because Ozzy was singing about it, so I wanted to get my hands on what the source material was.
Sure.
And I'm not blaming it on all that stuff, but I wonder if you're in that frame of mind and you're in a dark place and don't know how to filter it or process it, especially at such a young age, that you're inviting some darker things in. So I'm at my buddy's house.
Definitely open to it, yeah.
Yeah, and I know that stuff now, and that's why I'm able to be around all this material, and it doesn't put me in a bad mood. It actually, I see it as I'm collecting artifacts, and I put them around my house. And, it's interesting to me. So I'm at my buddy's house. We're listening to music, and a few of us stayed over his house. And he lived with his sister and his mother. And so we're in his room. We're all falling asleep. I'm sleeping on the floor. Another buddy's on the floor in the corner somewhere, and this dude's on his bed. And it's dark in the room, and I'm looking up at his ceiling, and he's got those glow-in-the-dark stars. He had them all over the ceiling, and then, just kind of drifting off to sleep. And I fell asleep, and then I wake up. And I wake up to this loud whispering. It feels like it's pitch black in the room outside of looking up at these stars. And I'm awake. I wasn't dreaming. And it's just this loud whispering. It was like a female, coming from a female. And immediately I knew this is just strange. Like there was something really weird about it. And, I said, "Hey, who's doing that? Hey," and I kicked his bed, and he woke up and said, "Go back to sleep. What are you talking about?" And I was possessed to get up. And so I got up. I found my way to the door, walked out into the hallway. I knew where his sister's room was, and I'm creeping around his house, trying to find that. And I'm hearing this whispering while I'm walking around.
Is it saying something, or do you know what it's saying, or you just hear it?
So it was. Now it could have been a language. I mean, I'm familiar with many languages. I don't speak them, but if I heard someone speaking it, I could tell you whether it's German or Russian or Spanish.
Sure, yeah.
And maybe it was a language I wasn't familiar with at the time, but it sounded like gibberish. It was just whispering, but I couldn't make out any of the words. It was in the cadence of a language, and it was just whispering. And so I'm walking around, and I'm freaked out, because it's in the middle of the night. It's dark in this house, and something's whispering, and I'm trying to find the source of it just to make sense. But I knew the whole time that I wasn't going to find anything because it was really out of the ordinary, and it came with a very odd feeling. Like I felt really strange listening to this thing. I knew it was something weird.
Yeah.
And so I walked down the steps to where his mother's room was, and I'm walking through. And again, I'm creeping through this guy's house, going to people's bedroom doors. Just trying to figure this out, you know?
Yeah.
And his mom was fast asleep. And so I kind of hurried back into his room, and I laid back down on his floor and just freaked out and tried to just, drown it out. And then eventually I fell asleep. I think as the, sky was turning bluish and the sun was coming up, I fell asleep. So I only heard it one other time. It was the next night, and it was when I was back at my parents' house. And so I go back to my parents that night, and it was around the same time again. And same sound. This time I'm just really listening. And I'm like, what is this? And I wasn't as scared, but I was, still bugged out by it because I knew it wasn't, I didn't hear it during the day. It didn't filter throughout the day. It didn't happen any other time outside of I would already fall asleep and then wake up and hear this thing again. And then I never heard it again.
Wow.
I never heard it before that. I never heard it again. I don't know what the rules are here. I may have picked up some attachment from his house.
Sure.
I don't know what I was really hearing, but I have since found out about different technologies that can make a person feel like they're hearing things. Maybe something interdimensional. Maybe something was trying to communicate with me elsewhere. You don't know. Back then I was like, this is a haunting. That was a ghost.
Sure.
I don't know what it is. I have no idea what a ghost is,
Yeah. That's bizarre. I've heard a lot of stuff like through the years, but I haven't heard someone hearing like whispering like that. That's a new one.
Yeah, and I didn't, I ruled out that I was, if I was nuts because it wasn't. It was just selective. It just only did it for 2 nights at 2 different same time of night, 2 different locations, and never happened again.
Yeah, it's crazy. How old were you roughly?
About 14.
Yeah. Yeah, man, that's a strange one for sure. That must have shook you up for a little while.
It's just thinking about it. It's what when you've experienced something. I had a friend some years ago. It was not too long after her father passed away, and she called me from Puerto Rico, where she was living, and she said she was crying, and I'm like, "Hey, what's going on?" And she's like, I just saw a ghost. Like, when you believe someone, there's no way she would have called me to say that if she didn't.
Yeah.
And I felt how afraid and how exhilarated she was at the same time. And then she described what she saw. And it was the man. He appeared to her in the kitchen of the apartment she was renting. And she later talked to the landlord. And the landlord said, she said that he used to live here. This was my husband. The man you were describing. And she brought out a picture, and it was him.
Wow. Great.
Yeah. And he was just standing there in the kitchen. He smiled at her. She said he didn't do anything wrong. He just scared me. And she was crying from that experience, because all at once you realize that we go on, that there's something else.
And it just shatters any, veil of normalcy, you know what I mean? Like of regular world. You're like, oh no, you just saw some other shit, you know what I mean? Like, and with your own eyes, and there's no going back, Yeah,
not to get too overly metaphysical, but we live in the fake world. I mean, like we everything before us, everything from the desk I'm sitting at to the computer and everything is just a replica of someone's imagination. We create these things to make sense of our daily life. It's not real. None of it's really real.
Yes.
Maybe the other side is real, and we don't know what that is. It could be something so simple. Imagine getting there and everyone's just like, let me just sit you down for a second and tell you what, and you're like, oh, that's what this is? Oh my God. The whole time we're all so scared and everyone's so afraid of each other and afraid of everything. And it just makes so much sense now. Kind of hope for that.
Yeah. That's kind of one of the better possible outcomes, right?
Yeah. Well, like, what was it? Bill Hicks said, it's just a ride.
Yeah.
You're on it for a while and you get off, but it's a ride. Yep. Maybe that has a deeper meaning.
This is true. He was there's so much wisdom in comedy. Like, it's like Yeah, who knows, man. So I'm trying not to get down too many rabbit holes here. I'm trying to get on track because we could talk about a million different things right now.
Oh, no worries.
Why don't we talk about? I know you spent a considerable amount of time researching the going-ons over at Montauk and the Montauk base. And I'm going to admit, until I saw your movie, I wasn't as familiar with it. I knew about like the Montauk Monster and the thing that washed up that they think is just a dog or whatever it was, or a raccoon.
Yeah, it was a raccoon.
Yeah. but I think more people are familiar with that. But the whole Montauk thing gets pretty deep. Like it and it's all the possibilities. So you're the expert on this. Why don't you talk a little bit about your research on Montauk and the Montauk Chronicles? Because that's a good introduction for people to check out your film. And I know a lot of people find this stuff interesting and they might not know about it. So, like a synopsis of your research and what you found and what got you interested in that. And then, talk a little bit about the film.
Sure. So when I first heard about it, it was in the 90s when Preston Nichols' little tiny independently published book came out. And we grew up with movies like Brian De Palma's The Fury and David Cronenberg's Scanners and, Stephen King's Firestarter. And they all were about government programs that were trying to take human beings and enhance abilities. I knew a little bit about some of the programs that allegedly really did happen, and now they've been confirmed they did happen. Like the government was involved in enhancing these allegedly innate human abilities, everything from psychic warfare, where they could remote view and see plans from afar, to other abilities that they would hope to unlock because, of course, the military would want to use that for anything. They had a telekinetic warrior, psychic warriors. These programs really happened. So just knowing that, and then you had a few old men that claimed they were part of the deeper level versions of these programs, things that would make your head spin. Plus aliens were involved, plus doorways to other dimensions and back in time. And I'm like, all right, listen to me. I don't know if I believe this because I grew up with this fiction. But what I want to do, and this is where my mindset was at the time, was just talk to these old guys. I think it would make an amazing documentary if I just sit in their backyard, just sit in a very normal, real situation where they live and just have this old man tell me a story. And that's how it started. And I started shooting it in 2006. And then as it progressed, started to read a little bit more about government programs that were a little darker in nature. Everything from the Tuskegee medical experiments, where they lied to a bunch of gentlemen and they told them they were getting free health care and they were injecting them with syphilis and monitoring them over time. That's one. The other one was the Holmesburg prison experiment, where they were telling these inmates that here's $5, here's $20, we're going to test some bubble bath on you. But really what they were doing, and again, this can be confirmed, you can check out a book called Acres of Skin by Alan Hornblum and other research, is that these guys were being used in mind control experiments. In other words, where these deep government-funded programs were taking these people who they thought were totally expendable, like in the Tuskegee medical experiments, completely disgusting stuff, and they just saw different people who they thought were expendable and no one cared about and no one would kick up a fuss and we could lie to and try different things on. So where the Montauk Project comes in this and why I believe it ultimately, now not everything that was said, but what I do believe in is I think it was tantamount to like the Holmesburg prison experiment, where there was a ton of runaway kids at the time, street kids, street hustlers. And they approached them, maybe in some cases offered them a stipend and said, we want you to be part of this study. We'll pay you this much. Come on down. And allegedly, they were beaten, abused to the point of where their personalities were fractured.
Yeah, basically breaking their personality.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Completely broken down. where their minds could be manipulated and other things like enhancing psychic abilities. And in this process, it said that there were thousands that were murdered over the years in this process. So that's something that dawned on me a little further into it. It was a journey because I made two different movies. One I threw out and started all over again for several reasons, and the one that's out in the world right now. And again, I had to put in some of the more fantastic claims, which were, they were reverse engineering alien technology there. There were doorways that they were being created through technology to other dimensions. There was alien contact. There were monsters being created from an imaginary, the combination of your imagination and a very powerful technological device that was given to us by the aliens. Part of me feels like a lot of that was created to throw people off of this mass murder program. Yeah. Much like the Holmesburg prison experiments or other experiments that actually did happen that could be confirmed.
Yeah, you heard of Midnight Climax, right? Where they were giving LSD to Johns visiting prostitution houses in San Francisco in like the 60s to see if they could do mind control, and kind of gets connected to the Manson family a little bit and everything. But there was a big book on that just came out in the last couple of years.
I just bought that last night. Chaos, I think it's called.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I didn't even read it yet, but I'm gonna check it out. No, I can't wait to dive into that one.
But it's another one of those things where it's like they've come out and like, yes, this project existed, and this guy kind of blew it up a little bit, and and then if anyone's further reading, the introduction, just go get William Cooper, Behold a Pale Horse.
That is scary to read right now.
Yeah, I know. I found my old copy, and I had like the first press, like I bought when I was a kid, like in the early '90s, and I just found it again. I had this is like the synchronicity thing. Like I was like, I let someone borrow this book like 15 years ago, and I couldn't think of who it was, and it was driving me crazy. And 2 days later, one of my old friends called. He's like, "Hey, I still got your book. Do you want it back?" And I was like, "Absolutely." You know how it is, man.
Yeah.
You throw things out and it comes back.
Yeah, man. No, it's good to have all of the. I basically kept that library I've been building since I was a kid. As many of them as I've been able to hold on to over the years. I've moved a lot, but it's the Montauk Project at this time, after everything I've done and everything I've researched, and the fact that there were so many other programs that occurred during that time that we were able to prove, is that I believe something happened there. And then later on, after I made this 2-hour docudrama called Montauk Chronicles, I ended up a few years later making a show and producing it and co-hosting it for History Channel called The Dark Files, which I was able to do something I didn't have the money to do for Montauk Chronicles, which was really a character study of the idea and the claims that these guys said happened.
Yeah.
Dark Files, I was able to...
Not to cut you off quick, but man, what time, and you got these guys while they were still alive, before they were too far, too old, where, you know what I mean? Like you got them probably when they're more ready to talk about things, and too when they didn't have unfortunately not a lot of time left. So it was so good you got to document that before they were gone.
Yeah, man. Al Bielek died while I was filming, so I was able to carry over the only interview I did with him and into the second version. But outside of that, I got to re-interview everybody, and then I re-interviewed them again for the Dark Files. And in the mix, some people were clearly making some stuff up. But I think some of them were genuine. At least I feel Preston Nichols was part of something. He had something to do with it, because a lot of what these guys said has since been revealed in other ways, or is starting to come true. Even some of the technology they talked about years ago that wasn't even being discussed anywhere has come to fruition. And I'm not giving them full credit for everything they said, but obviously something happened there. When I made the Dark Files for History Channel, we brought geophysicists to the ground. They were able to use a device called electric resistivity imagery, where we got a vertical slice, and you'll see it in the show. We got a vertical slice that proves there was an enormous, man-made structure underneath the ground, where these guys are saying there's nothing there whatsoever. I don't know why it's so hard for people to believe, especially after all the evidence that we have that there were other programs like this, that at least something that's similar happened at Montauk during that time period between 1971 and 1983. You know, it's not that hard to believe.
Yeah. So, for people that might not be familiar, exactly what you're saying is that basically confirmed the existence of big underground structures. You know what I mean? So, like, if the normal base is on the surface and maybe a basement, but how deep did it go down?
So when we took the reading, the geophysicists took the reading, the top of the ceiling itself was 25 feet or so down. And then from the ceiling to the floor, it was another, I don't know, I think they said something like 30 feet.
Yeah.
And that was just a small vertical slice on the outskirts of the gate that surrounds this giant radar tower.
Yeah.
The SAGE semi-automatic ground environment radar tower that's basically on the cliff overlooking the Atlantic Ocean, Montauk Point. The way the town, for anybody that doesn't know at all anything about this, the town is configured where 5 miles from the town itself, which in the summertime it's a resort town. You know, people end up going there to go to the beaches, they go surfing, they have a good time. But 5 miles from town, in the middle of the woods, many, many acres of woods, is something called Camp Hero, which is now open to the public. You can go there. It's one of the only places, you know, it's like, you know, Area 51 and stuff like that are not accessible legally, but you can legally walk around Camp Hero. They have historical markers everywhere, but what you cannot do is bring the equipment that we brought in for History Channel, because they were constantly bugging us.
Yeah.
On the day we were scheduled to look at certain areas, and this is in the dead of winter, and Montauk's in the middle of nowhere. In the dead of winter, U.S. Army Corps of Engineers were there in droves, drilling. It was like they were putting on a show to keep us out. And why were they there the same exact day?
Yeah.
Same day. And we didn't even make a huge deal out of this for the show, but so many curious things have happened in regard to this research. Because imagine, if you will, number one, that base gets revealed, and then we know that, you know, there were tons of people illegally murdered. There are legal murders, you know, in law enforcement and the military, but this case would have been illegal murders because they were brought under false pretenses. Kids being murdered as scientific subjects, you know, for a mind control experiment. A lot of people believe the chaos of the last 2 or 3 years are a result of a lot of these things coming out, because we're about to find out what our history really is, you know, what's really happened over the last 75 years. And it's not going to be pretty, you know, or maybe like you were saying earlier, people are going to find out and they're just not going to care. I mean, didn't they just reveal 2 days ago that the CIA killed Kennedy? Like, no one cares.
I didn't even know that. Did they really? Did they really?
I think so. Yeah. I think just like they've been revealing the UFO stuff, that it's somewhat enigmatic, you know, like it's a soft, better than soft disclosure. But there's enough there, if you sit and think about it and you look at it and you read it, that you're like, wait a second. Like, Oswald was in the CIA. Yeah. Like, and you know, people like Oliver Stone and you know, the characters that he portrayed in it. It was a nonfiction story in JFK. The movie was all about this conspiracy, and we've known it for years. You know, that bullet couldn't have done that dance.
Yeah.
You know,
it's crazy.
Physics doesn't allow it. Yeah.
I gotta look up what came out about that, because the last thing I remember is that, you know, when they were supposed to unseal all the files, they're like, nope, we're gonna seal them again another 40 years or 75 years or whatever it was, and it was like, okay, some of these motherfuckers must still be alive then.
Yeah, no, at the very least, Oswald, it was revealed 100% he was in the CIA, and yeah, and there's more to this. We know it. Come on,
yeah,
you know it, and it's just, you know, it's going to, if they keep us divided and keep distracting us with a bunch of bullshit, we will never figure this out and never seem to care, you know? I mean, if the Matrix was available to everyone tomorrow, that would be a great move on their part. Great chess move, a checkmate.
Yeah.
Because everybody would just jump in the Matrix, forget this place. I want to go and do everything I ever wanted to do. Total Recall.
Yep. Yeah, no, I get it, man. It's true. That's what I mean too. Is over the last couple of years, the keep everyone divided, and bombarded, and like dumbed down and in the dark, and fighting amongst each other or concerned about trivial things, bread and circus stuff. You know what I mean? Like it's never been more apparent, man. And it's like it's sad. You know what I mean? Because you want to have a glass half full. Like, hey, man, maybe it's just got to get a little worse before people really start waking up. But I feel like things are done so incrementally on purpose so that there's never a big like jolt to people. It's like, oh, sneak this in. All right, push a little further, take a little more of this, do that, and then
yeah,
you don't even.
It's not shocking enough. What would be shocking?
Yeah, exactly. Well, I don't think until there's no more hamburgers and TV, you know what I mean? Like football or something, like, people aren't going to like get jolted out. You know what I mean? Like they keep everyone happily complacent through that type of stuff,
Cut off their internet, cut off their power, cut off, that's how quickly the world will go to shit. We've seen it even with just a hurricane cutting out power for a week. Everybody, it's like the end of the world. They just can't deal with it anymore.
Yeah, Katrina. That was a little. The anthropologist in me, studies human culture the collapse in the wake of that. You know what I mean? Like, I had friends out there giving me like blow by blow, like daily updates of what kind of craziness was going on in their neighborhoods, like out there after the wake of Katrina. It's,
way back in Katrina. I got to see New Orleans. Just about a year after, and it was still pretty scary. It was chaotic, less than a year. I went out there to shoot a documentary about an animal rescue. They were still pulling animals from underneath houses that were just underwater, not that long ago, the mud and everything. And the gangs were still taking over certain areas, and they just had no problem shooting you. They felt like it, it would just be like, I feel like shooting you.
Yeah, my buddy was out there and he goes, it was basically Mad Max times. He's like, and he's got pictures and they all look like Mad Max. Like, what I mean? he's like, yeah, man. A few days into it, he goes, there was a cop patrolling the area, and he goes, the cop's like, hey, look, I'm leaving tonight at 6. I'm not coming back. Like, you know what I mean? Like, so you guys are on your own. You better have some guns.
Well, that's, how do you feel about, and again, we've seen this all in movies, the time of Nostradamus, he's sitting there like writing down these prophecies. But since then, like from H.G. Wells to Stephen King, prophets are in the form of writers.
Yeah.
They're channeling this stuff. So everything that those guys have written, all of these people have prophesized it's all coming true.
Orwell. Orwell.
Yeah, 100%. He was a prophet. Yeah. They're all prophets. Philip K. Dick.
Yeah.
All of these guys, they're all prophets. They're like Nostradamus. You keep looking back at Nostradamus, and what did Nostradamus say? It's like, read Philip K. Dick and Orwell. They're prophets. They wrote about what's to happen, what's coming.
I mean, Orwell's pretty tame. 1984 is pretty tame to what's happening right now, but maybe it is. Maybe there's something to it, right? Like, I never thought about that. Maybe these guys are, seeing things, but they're not writing it down in a prophetic way. They're just making a book out of it, fiction. Like,
sure.
Oh, I see this, and this is what I kind of see coming through, and maybe they are getting a glimpse of something. Yeah,
well, that's what a modern prophet would do. They're just going to be like, oh, my imagination is really strong about this idea. Let me write this down. I'm not a prophet. I'm just somebody that's thinking this stuff up. And it's like, oh, maybe you're seeing up ahead.
Yeah. So with Montauk too, like, I know there's been like a tide where it's like, because I know a lot of people are familiar with Stranger Things, and I know that your work with the Montauk Project was kind of influential. How was that? What's the connection between that and Stranger Things? Because I know a lot of people are going to be more familiar with Stranger Things.
So it's 100% connected. Actually, when the Duffers pitched Stranger Things to Netflix, it was pitched as Montauk.
Okay.
That was the name of it.
Yeah. Have you ever talked to them?
No, they know of me though.
Yeah,
They know all about me. I mean, I've had my own television shows, obviously not as big as Stranger Things, but they know who I am. They've seen my documentary.
yeah, of course. And if they're calling their thing Montauk, it's,
Yeah, no. I was the only person that portrayed that story in a visual way where, there were some visual riffs that were definitely observed and taken. And I'm not the only one that says it, but at the end of the day, they made their own show. I like the show.
yeah,
It's cool. I think it did nothing but help me in the end,
sure.
and help bring people to want to see Montauk Chronicles, maybe that would never see it. And it's funny. What was it? I think it was like Washington Post or something contacted me, and they were like, some guy, that made a short film, and he made it way after my doc. Obviously, he saw my documentary too, and he made this tiny little 6-minute thing. It was trying to sue the Duffers, and I'm like, get out of here! You know what? Tell him to get off his ass and go make a movie instead.
Yeah,
I'm trying to sue these guys. These guys, big deal. They got inspired by an idea, and they went out and made a successful show. Everything's at your access. You can't sit there unless someone really does plagiarize, and you have a good, they have the provenance where you can prove this motherfucker took my script and made it into a movie. That's different. But if someone's just inspired by an idea that was already out there, and then they glanced at my documentary and thought, okay, cool, we'll get some inspiration from this. I'm not suing a soul, and I have no interest whatsoever. I went out and made my own shows, and like I said, I think it was a beneficial thing in the end. And, whatever. I hope they just don't rip anybody else off.
yeah. So now with Dark Files, was it solely based on the Montauk stuff, or did it get into other things the way Strange World did?
Dark Files was just directly a sequel to Montauk Chronicles, and different in the sense where, like I said, Montauk was a character study with dramatization. And the Dark Files, there were recreations that I directed for it, but it was mainly an investigation, and I had myself at the center, and then Barry Eisler, who was ex-CIA and is now like an espionage writer of fiction, and then this guy Steve Volk from the Washington Post, which he was supposed to be the skeptic, and he was really annoying the whole time. But
that's kind of his job, right? That's kind of
yeah. I can't. Yeah, but he was so annoying to the point where we couldn't step forward on an idea. It was difficult having him as an investigative partner. There were a couple of times I appreciated him, but he was always there to say, well, no, this. And it's like, look, traditionally, people like you in history are proven wrong because you're living in the narrow hallway. It's good to be skeptical.
Sure.
I'm skeptical of just about everybody I meet until they give me a reason not to be.
You gotta be. Especially in these worlds, because there is a lot of foolishness as well as a lot of truth, and you gotta
sure.
So you gotta wade through it, right, to get to the kernel of truth.
Yeah, I wanted to bring up one example though. Here's an example where I think we really clashed, and I truly believe he was wrong. And I think here's a ruse for you. So you have someone like Timothy Leary, who's promoted as this peace and love guru who gives everybody LSD and promotes everybody to drop out and, drop acid and tune out.
Tune in and drop out. Yeah.
Right. Think about this for a second. Do some research on Timothy Leary. There's footage of Timothy Leary chumming it up with MK Ultra scientists, pinching their cheeks around a fire and giggling and laughing about experiments they took place in. I truly believe Leary was put out there on purpose, and that persona was created, and that he was passing out LSD because they had already tested it in these mind control experiments, and it was meant to distract people from a cause, and we have been messed with in this way for a very long time. You got to be careful whenever a public figure comes out like that and is everybody's friend. That's who I'm skeptical of. Not, when I hear about a government program or something really weird happening, I approach with caution. And I certainly don't declare it real. Even to this moment, I'll say, I believe something happened at Montauk. I can't tell you it was real. It hasn't been proven yet. But I can tell you what has been proven. And if you believe in any kind of, guilt by association, there are programs that are almost the same as Montauk, maybe sans the time travel and alien stuff. But that could have just been put out to throw people off.
Yeah. Well, you see, distractions or things meant to just make it discredit everything.
Sure.
Because I do feel there is some disinformation put out there to discredit the reality of things too. Like the I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, man.
It is. But what's been, I know you dedicated a lot of years to that. Anything else that was like particularly striking or you feel very strongly about with Montauk that was a real aspect of it versus, what might be I don't know about this much.
Yeah, I believe since that was the modus operandi of a lot of these programs where they were looking for undesirables, they were looking for people who nobody would believe. So whether it be the bad kids or whether it be kids on the street or criminals, orphanages, they've preyed on all of these places in history. And why wouldn't they have done it in yet another? I guarantee you there are probably a multitude of other programs that we haven't found out about, we may never find out about.
Yeah.
And so I believe that is a major point. However, with the revelation that we are well aware that there are technologies unknown, okay, and they confirmed 100% they are not of earthly origin, which means they're either from some other dimension or from some other planet, galaxy, somewhere in outer space. And if those things are being admitted to, then that gives some credence to and some credibility to some of the other claims surrounding Montauk.
Yeah.
And do I believe that the governments of the world have experimented with technologies that we've only heard about in fiction and things we could only imagine? 100%. It's been confirmed that they did. There's a story that I learned while making Strange World, the series I did for Discovery Travel, and going to spend time with these remote viewers that did work with the CIA. They claim that the Marvel was approached years and many years ago when they were designing the X-Men. And these ideas of a government creating these supermen, was something that was purposefully discussed in regards to those comic books. I don't know what, is it put in fiction to throw people off, or is it put in fiction to prepare us for something? Because like I had said earlier, everything in fiction becomes real. And so one day, I don't know how far ahead, you're not only going to be able to change and to have superhuman abilities in the VR world, in the Matrix, because the Matrix will be real, not too long from now, but will you be able to do it in life? And there's gene hacking and DNA splicing and all, and
CRISPR, all that stuff.
Yeah, you're able to create human-animal hybrids and all of this stuff. So everything that was written about, everything we grew up with in comic books, everything we grew up with in fiction is all going to be real. I'm trying to figure out what is completely impossible, because I don't think there is anything. It's just a matter of time.
And the science behind it. Now you've talked to a lot of people, again, some of the people that were involved with the Montauk project, but also people who were, I don't want to say victims, or children that were involved in it as research subjects. Are there a lot of things that you hear from multiple people that might not, evidence that kind of conveys like a do you know what I'm saying? Things that people might not know unless they were really involved in the project. Are you hearing overlapping stories from different sources?
Yeah, I have. And there's a common denominator amongst, I think, the people I believe the most. The common denominator is they seem really damaged to me. And I've spoken to some of these people in private. I'll tell you about one thing that was very striking that I could never get her to fully reveal her identity or come on to a show. She almost did, and she got cold feet. And this was one of the greatest pieces of evidence. But and again, I have to be careful, especially in recent years, it's really dawned on me that if I'm speaking about this stuff intelligently,
Yeah.
like, whereas if I'm hyper realizing it on a show, they're fine with that. They don't care.
Yeah. Yeah.
But if I'm sitting here,
And that's part of the disinformation
Yeah.
and distraction technique. You just be like, yeah, man, I saw an 8-legged tentacle thing come out of a portal and outside
Sure.
of Montauk. Yeah, people are going, all right, yeah.
sure. But if you discuss it with intelligence, with thought, and contemplate it and ask people to contemplate themselves, they don't like that.
Backed by research as well, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And just, associative research, you can look and find out that programs almost 100% the same happened. And there were people that obviously were researching extraterrestrials and researching alien contact and alien technology, and all of this stuff is starting to be revealed. So if you start to put all these pieces together in one place, then you have to admit that if all of this other stuff is real and it's slowly being revealed as real, and if we've known about it for a long time, is it possible that a deep government project existed where they were looking at all this stuff? It seems very believable to me.
Even if it was just as simple as using like psychedelics or drugs or things to do mind control to help develop psychic abilities or something, that's, earthly, of the earthly realm. Like, you don't even have to get into science fiction for that, and you can surround it with all the craziness you want. But if they were doing that by itself, that's so screwed up. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. Now I've talked to several and have met a few of them too, of these people that I mentioned previous, that I felt had gone through some damage. Like, when someone's in prison for a lot of years, they come out and there's just something, a good deal of them come out and there's just something different. You've gone through something that a lot of people don't understand.
They're a little institutionalized, yeah.
Right. And the people that claim they were part of these government programs, there's something alike about them. There's still issues they have to work out. There's still damage. Now, a psychiatrist, walking out with, rote academia will walk out and just say, well, the reason for this is because they're trying to give a name to the problem. And they can't take responsibility for the way they feel, and they need to blame a bigger monster for it. Okay, that's great. That's what the book told you to think. But later we'll find out, like Christina DiNicola, who in the 90s revealed she really was part of it, and it was confirmed 100%. And these people before Congress, she was one of them, said, no, this was not just a radiation experiment that's bad enough. These were mind control experiments. And Congress admitted to it, and Bill Clinton apologized with one of the Tuskegee medical subjects in front of him because he tried to make it seem like this was a different government at a different time. It wasn't us. It was them.
Yeah.
And it's like, wait a second here. Come on, think with your own mind. Don't just take what these people are giving you. And so what I'm saying right now, my language right now, is what's dangerous, I think. Like, it's basically saying, no, yeah, they apologize. What did they apologize for? Think about what you're really seeing here, okay? They're apologizing for a government that occurred 30 years before that sitting president? And you're telling me all that stuff has been dismantled and it's gone now?
Yeah.
And what, you're just going to explain all of these mass shootings that happened one after another as just, copycats? Come on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
so there's something to this.
Yeah. Have you ever, that was going to, that was going to be one of my follow-up questions. Have you ever been talked to by anybody, you know what I mean? Or approached or been like, hey man, you might want to tone this down? Or, or if you can't answer that, don't answer it either. You know what I mean?
No, not directly. I think maybe some channels have been stopped here and there, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah.
I can't say for sure. I can only estimate that if I was in their shoes, I wouldn't be happy with anyone speaking about this intelligently, because it's contagious when someone says, well, wait a second, don't just accept what they tell you.
Yeah.
Open your mind for a second and think about, if they were trying to cover up something really bad, would they come forward and reveal everything? And during that same time period, in that 2-week period, like I said, wasn't just the Tuskegee medical experiments that were being talked about. There were other things happening that week before Congress. And that stuff was just kind of brushed underneath the rug. And when you tell someone about this, they can even go and double check and research this themselves, and they'll find out it's true.
Yeah, there'll be all in the records, the congressional records.
Yeah. But then what do we do about it?
Yeah,
you know,
that's
and
the
then,
other thing, right? What do you do?
Yeah. What do you do about it? I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah, sometimes I envy people that are just blissfully unaware and don't care. You know what I mean? It's like, must be nice.
Well, part of me is like, well, okay, now that you're aware, maybe you won't be so susceptible to some of the triggers that are being sent out. If there is any kind of mass mind control going out in TV, music, maybe you'd be selective about what you're opening your eyes to.
Dude, I'm going to just say it, and I know it's not popular, and I'm going to get some hate mail about this, but it works. There are still people wearing masks on the street for COVID reasons when they've said 100% these masks don't work for COVID. So mass mind control does work. You know what I mean? It's still,
I was very
still to this day, you know, and I'm not saying again. So before people get mad about it, and I know everyone lost people, and you know whatever. I'm just saying to this day we know masks don't work for COVID. There's still people wearing masks for COVID. That's all I'm saying. I'm not getting to any of the deepness of anything else around the thing itself. You know, it's just crazy.
It's okay. It's okay to ask questions. I had a lot of questions over the last almost 3 years. A lot of questions. Things just don't make sense.
And the dangerous thing to me is if you do ask questions and you get jumped on by people because they label you a conspiracy theorist. And I'm like, no, I'm just doing my duty as a citizen and asking questions that, you know, aren't far-fetched questions. Like, you know, and I did come under scrutiny for some of that stuff. And I wasn't coming out against vaccinations or against this and that. I was like, we got to think about this. Like just from a HIPAA and a public health and perspective, like you guys everyone's taking something without, you know, and you're signing away your rights to any, you know, legal ramifications of it. You know what I mean? Or you're signing your rights to any legal ramifications, legal recourse for medical issues that come from this, you know, and now we're seeing that, you know, and there's nothing anyone can do about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. I don't want to touch it. I just want.
No,
it was just about the mass control stuff. That's all I meant was like, you know, like
there's a lot of it.
There's a lot of it.
if okay, let's say we ran the show, and if we wanted to do certain things to either control the populace, reduce it, manipulate it.
Yeah. We're
going to sit in this big room together or whatever we do, and we're going to talk about it. And they're thinking on levels of triple crosses, quadruple crosses, ways we don't think. And that's an easy way to hide the deception because we can only think as far as a double cross, right? Yeah. And most people won't even go that far. So if they're being deceived, right? But the level of deception is so many layers. What's been done to us over the last few years and probably much longer is that's not a normal way to think. And so that is one way they can easily start hiding things and manipulating people. What you just said, where if you dare question why someone is still wearing a mask, and the way people jump on you was all orchestrated by mass media, 100%. And it was done with fear. And that was designed and it was done on purpose. And if you don't believe that, I'm sorry. I'm not trying to hurt you by saying it.
No, 100%.
I'm not trying to hurt you.
100%. And that's it. And if you recall, like when, you know, this situation was first happening, we were being bombarded with footage from China of people just collapsing and dying on like subway stations and all over the place. And I didn't see that once happen. Now you see it happening afterwards, but from people like a lot of pro athletes and stuff are just keeling over and dying, but you didn't see it during the pandemic, you know?
Sure. And during the pandemic, when we were so restricted, why on earth only selectively were people allowed to go out and cause chaos.
Yeah. Or you couldn't have Thanksgiving dinner with your family, but you could go to Black Friday at Walmart the next day. As It's stupid. It just got ridiculous. I was like, you got to question that. You got to question that. And I'm not saying,
Right.
I'm not giving medical advice or anything. I'm just saying you gotta question things. Like, the show Strange World. I got to see the first 2 episodes of it. And the first one was Montauk, and the second one was I can never remember the name of the game. Polybius or
that's correct. Yeah.
Polybius. Yeah, that's a crazy story. Going along with everything we're talking about now,
Yeah, and I just covered it for the podcast again a couple of episodes back. So Polybius was a game not unlike the Tron game for Atari or some of the earlier vector type games.
Yeah,
and it's not hard to believe. This is always my thing when I approach something like this, is that, oh yeah, that's just a legend. The video game was put in arcades, and they say that these men took it out and they put it in there to mess with kids' heads, and it's like, oh yeah, what do you call Fortnite right now? It's only evolved. So I try to tell people, if you think Polybius is such a far-fetched idea, mind you, that was like phase 1, many, many years ago, 40 years ago, right? Right now, it's in the form of Fortnite. Right now, it's in your VR helmets. Polybius could be any game that's being played right now.
Yeah.
And you don't know what the triggers are or what the suggestion is. I'm not against games. I think games are great, but it's just, if you were this sinister outfit and you wanted to reach the mass populace, the most popular things in the world for the youth are games. They're all playing
games and TikTok, yeah.
Games and TikTok, unbelievable what's showing up on TikTok.
Yeah, and what's unbelievable is what is on American TikTok versus Chinese TikTok. You know what I mean? And it's just
sure.
With Chinese, it's like, oh, they shut it off at a certain time, and they're pushing science and science related activities to the top of the viewership, and not influencers and the ridiculousness that we get. And that's
watch
long game planning. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Watch John Carpenter's They Live. Watch that movie.
Yeah. So, and all you've been around a lot of things and researched a lot of things. What have been some of the, and we talked about Montauk, but what have been some of the most, I don't know, like not crazy, but what have, some of the most like things that have hit you the hardest that you've come across where you think might be, an actual, there's truth to it?
I could go through the gamut, but the thing that's hit me the hardest, that has really disturbed me, and that not that I turn a blind eye to every day, but I've just accepted that obviously this thing has happened, and it's happening. And I think and what I mean is the mass manipulation and mass mind control that must have stemmed from government programs. Listen, I'm a very logical, critical thinker.
Yes.
And you have these programs that started way back and for a reason. And now it's hit such a fever pitch that you have these lone gunmen that are going out twice a month at least, shooting people. And it's creating fear. And you had this mass event where we had this mysterious pandemic that just started out of nowhere, that's locked all countries down around the world. And there were riots and constant division and changes of perspective that in the face of some kind of revolution that did not have to happen that way. And that is what's concerned me the most.
Yeah.
And it still does, because I don't know who the good guys and who the bad guys are. And I don't know what's going to happen. And so every day I've made an exception to just continue, because, the greatest writers and artists and speakers, right? And we're in that realm with everything we do, happened during some times of great turmoil. And they spoke about those things in metaphor and sometimes outright. And I think without, being ham-fisted or trying to lecture anybody ever, is that it should be in the subtext of our work, and we speak about the time we're in. I believe we're going to survive this time, but it's certainly not easy, and we might see a few more really horrible things before any of it eases down, unfortunately, or at least you have to be prepared for that. But live your life, live your life, be around the people you love, do things you love to do. Do not let this distract you, because I think that's part of the ruse. They want all eyes on whatever they want you to look at right now to distract you, keep you involved in the division and the hate and the constant fighting about just the dumbest things that we could just easily accept about each other and move on.
Yeah.
This is us. They're pulling our strings, man. You know this. It's
100%.
like, yeah. So I just try to move forward and not let it distract me from my dreams. You have your dreams. They can't take that from you.
I got to ask you a question too, man. Do you ride, man? I noticed you had a West Coast Chopper shirt on in Montauk Chronicles in the first episode of Strange World.
All right, so I'll tell you a quick story. My brother used to own a bar in New York called Mickey's Place, and it was where that chapter of the Pagans. It was their clubhouse. So I was around those guys growing up, and I got to ride a couple of bikes here and there. I'd like to get one down the road. My brother rides. He was out there, and I think he was in the Kingsman out here in Florida for a while. And it's definitely been part of my life.
Sure.
Like probably not as hardcore as yours or many of your listeners, but it's something I really love and respect for sure.
Cool. No, I had to ask, man, because I know a lot of people that listen to this ride and would be interested in that. But yeah, man, the podcast, Off to the Witch, is that a nod to the Dio song?
Oh yeah. Yeah, man.
Of course.
And I think it's a cool way of, you have, like, I was looking at titles and I was like, obviously I'm a huge Dio fan, but, I'm like, what could be a fantastic title that would be in the realm of as strong as the Twilight Zone, something like that.
Yeah,
and Off to the Witch is that. It's off to the bizarre or arcane or something different. And anything I'll do it falls in that category. And it's a brand for me. So I am writing a horror film called Off to the Witch, but there'll be books of fiction. There is the Off to the Witch Presents series that I've been shooting. It's my new docuseries, and each of them have their own title. Like the first one's called A Haunting We Will Go. And it's not like these ghost shows on TV at all. It's a very personal perspective, growing up with ghost stories, horror films, Halloween, and how that stuff is could leak into our reality and people that have experiences with it. So it's a very unique portrayal of that. And then the next episode is completely different. It's about killer gators in suburbia out here in Florida. And, it's a totally different turn of events each episode.
Nice, man. Yeah. When are you planning to come out with the show or the docuseries?
So you can see a pretty decent trailer for it. I kind of let out a little sneak preview for Halloween of the first episode on my YouTube channel. And you can just look up my last name. It's Garetano, Garetano, 7, or White Phosphorus Pictures. And you'll find my YouTube channel, and you can watch the A Haunting We Will Go trailer. But definitely next year, the first 2 chapters will be out next year, and then I'm making a few more. The next one after these 2 will be The Phantom Killer, because I was always fascinated by that story. It was a murderer in the 40s. They ended up making a horror film in the 70s called The Town That Dreaded Sundown, but it was in the Texas-Arkansas border in a place called Texarkana, and this guy he was never caught. He wore this hood. It was predated slasher films by many years, and he would go out in the night, kill people in their houses, lovers' lanes. Really terrifying story that I wanted to cover, and I have a unique way, as a filmmaker, how I want to cover it for the documentary.
Nice. Now, you still shopping that around for I know everything's coming out next year, or do you have a outlet for it, or is it going to be?
I do. Yeah, I do. Okay, so I've reevaluated this. Now, I could have easily between 2020, just before the pandemic hit, I had several new shows on board, greenlit, ready to go with networks. And then that slowly dissipated over a certain amount of months when we were locked down for over a year.
Sure.
The industry was shut down. So I said to myself, how do I fix this where I'm not vulnerable to not only the creative decisions of a network, where on Strange World, obviously I love my show and all, but, it was 70% of my vision made it to the screen. I want 100%, I'm sorry. I want 100% of my vision. So, how am I going to be able to accomplish that and then still really do it well enough to make a living? Well, luckily the world changed during the last 3 years. The world of distribution changed. And whereas I never thought it would be, something like Tubi is probably the most lucrative situation for a lot of, not just my little company, but bigger companies right now are doing so well with stuff like Tubi and Plex. And being that everyone turned to streaming and basic cable is almost an extinct dinosaur now, it's an even playing field, in other words. So if you can bring something of quality, whether it be on YouTube or you release it to Tubi or Plex or for download on Apple TV, you can do better than the salary that a network would pay you for one season of a show. You could probably do better on individual chapters being released, maybe a couple a year like I plan to, than making 8 chapters and getting paid a salary to do it and killing yourself over a 7-month period to do it and then compromising the work in the end. So I've really rethought this whole thing, and I think I might give it a shot at going through the aggregator that I went through for Montauk Chronicles, because Montauk Chronicles is doing very well on Plex and Tubi and Apple TV, but you can watch it on Tubi and Plex right now for free. You don't have to pay for it. A few commercial breaks, but it's uncut.
I've touted Tubi on this podcast before because that's where our Chop Ahead TV series is, and
that's great.
We used to deal with Amazon, but they got too weird and greedy, and my distributors and I went over to Tubi, and not only, and I'm not saying it to promote our stuff, but I love Tubi because it has so many old 60s and 70s subgenre movies that I love. You know what I mean? Whether it's bike stuff or just like 70s, 70s, just cult cinema. And there's so much there that's so fun. You know what I mean? I love it.
I keep telling people the same thing, man.
Yeah.
It's got the best. It's like an old video store. Plus, it has a lot of new movies too. And they're uncut. If they were cut, edited for TV, then I wouldn't budge. I wouldn't touch it. But they're uncut. So what? A few commercial breaks. You welcome those breaks sometimes.
And Tubi's free. Free. Just let them have a couple of commercials beforehand, maybe one during the middle of it, something. But by and large, man, it's way better than TV, and it's way better than paying for a subscription,
Yeah. Now, I think Tubi is distributed in the U.S., Canada, maybe Mexico, and Australia, I think,
It's not in Europe. I know that's one of the big problems. That's one of the big
problems.
Plex
is. If you can get stuff on Plex. And that's why I think Tubi and Plex, you've got the whole world territory. And you can, again, no matter what a network is promising you, at the end of the day, you're going to fall short somewhere. You're going to be frustrated. If you have the ability and the means to go out and create these things yourself, it'd be so much gratifying in the end. If you have, just a slight business sense about it, I'm giving you the best advice right now. I think something like Tubi is going to outdo a lot of these other streaming situations, and they're very smart right now. And I know from certain circles that they're doing very well. They're doing really well. I mean, think about some of the bigger movies that are on there. I've seen like The Matrix on there and everything. If Montauk Chronicles did what it did in the last couple of months on Tubi, I can only imagine what bigger titles are doing.
Yeah.
I mean, they must be raking in the money, just from the advertising. So I think that's the future, and I think the playing field is even. A lot of people don't have the ability to go out and make these shows themselves, but maybe you can couple with, an independent group if that's your passion to do it. However, I do, and I can make something of better quality, infinitely less of an investment, and obviously do it really well with it.
But the most important thing, retaining 100% creative control, and it's all DIY, which is, phenomenal.
Yeah.
phenomenal.
Yeah.
And you're turning out a better product all the way around, you know. And the problem is, I feel like executives get in, they have a vision for something, and their vision is based on something that was successful on another channel, and then they try and turn your shit into something else, you know.
Yes, they do. And I'm grateful that I had so much control over Strange World, but not enough, in my opinion. At the end of the day, I had to deal with people like that. And I don't want to deal with groups like that again. I have no interest whatsoever. I'm going to, I'm collaborating. Like, I just shot a movie in Texas. And one of the people in it, you'd love this. I didn't tell you about this. Edwin Neal from Texas Chainsaw Massacre is one of the stars of the movie.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I got to direct. That was like a dream when I was a kid. Like, he scared the shit out of me when I was a kid. I wanted to direct him in a movie.
Well,
but he was great.
What's the movie? Okay,
can you talk
about it?
Yeah. It's definitely surreal, and that's when I was reading the script. I didn't write it. This is all leading to a different film that I wrote years ago called South Texas Blues. It's a drama about Tobe Hooper making the Texas Chainsaw Massacre in 1973. Everything that happened that summer on the set, and so this group that I just made a movie called Love Bugs with is interested in that. And so this was a way for all of us to get together on something. And the movie Love Bugs it's like a family drama on the precipice of the apocalypse. That's the best way I can explain it. So it's this time, but really saturated, and it's very visually different than I think the normal portrayal of a melodrama would be. I mean, I have my hands on it, so I haven't skimped on anything. I've tried to make something really beautiful and different and cosmic and dreamy at times, and just diving into everything. And it has its moments that are pretty dark, because each person in the family is going through this dark night of the soul. So I'm trying to put everything. I lost, just like you probably, I lost family members and friends over the last couple of years. Trying to dig deep and put all of that into making this movie, because it's got to say something about the time. We started this conversation off talking about Easy Rider, and Easy Rider might not be in the form of, a couple of guys on a bike, transporting coke. It might be in the form of a family on the edge of the middle of nowhere in Texas, at the edge of the apocalypse, or it might be in some other form.
Just for the audience, Easy Rider, we were talking before we started recording.
Oh, okay. I forgot. I thought we were on the air.
Yeah, no. So it was the pre-conversation before we hit record. So that just to clarify that, yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, just having a good time. I feel better doing the things I'm doing right now, making the podcast, shooting this new movie, writing the script, making the new documentaries than I ever have. Yeah. I feel good about all this stuff.
What's been what was usually you're doing film, and in the past you've been doing film and TV, which have like heavy visual elements to it. What was it like you going to your podcast, which is audio only like mine? What was that jump like going to just audio? Because I know I like how you bring in like relevant movie clips to kind of like the topic, and the way you intro and kind of narrate things has like a storytelling effect to it. But was it an easy transition to going to just audio, or was there things you had to rethink doing that?
Yeah, I just, I try to put myself in the place of the audience, and all the stuff that we loved when we were kids, I'm trying to bring that somehow with maybe a little bit of a fresh perspective. But, I remember, I was a night owl for a long time and would stay up and listen to Art Bell. And
that's the best.
Between, even though my show isn't like this character, I remember watching that Oliver Stone movie, Talk Radio, and I was like, I just want something. I mean, my show will evolve over time, but I want something that hits people. And I just figured I'd try it. I wanted to always do it. I mean, I've done my own narration on my shows, and still telling a story, give them a cinematic feel through audio, tell good stories. I'm not out to solve any problems or solve a mystery at the end of the day. I'm just out to entertain you, give you information, give you a good time for an hour. Maybe you want to revisit it. I like making these things timeless too. And In other words, someone could listen to it in a year or two, and it won't feel like it's expired. So it's not really a news show or anything.
No, and I like you've had an array of guests. I haven't listened to every episode, but I've listened to a good amount of them. There is a thread of just kind of like, I like how you don't know what the next one's going to be. Like, it's not just like a ghost thing or like a conspiracy thing or a Montauk thing. It's like, one day you're recording live in a haunted house. The next one you're talking to someone about, cursed land, or you're talking to someone about, the guy, I forgot his first name. His last name was Price. He was one of the people that I was thinking about that was a Montauk survivor, right? Was it Price?
Yeah, Paul Richard Price. He wants to come on again.
Yeah, you had him on like twice, right? Yeah.
Yeah, man. I told him part 3 can't happen for a while.
Yeah. But it was great. And I mean, I remember, listening to him, I was like, I don't know if I believe all this. Just me, I don't know. But if all this is true, man, this, like, literally he tied every single element together. You know what I mean? Of like,
yeah, for sure.
Every element of like the whole realm of conspiracy. Like, it's just like he tied it all together in one threaded story that was very interesting. It was a very entertaining listen, to say the least.
Oh, thanks, man. Yeah, I'm purposefully choosing people that may have not had a lot of exposure. So some of them have, but some of them haven't, and I'm just trying to talk to people that aren't on shows over and over again. I could easily get those people, but I have some really good ones coming up ahead. Like, for instance, some of the subject matter has obviously been done to death, but I like to either do it in a traditional way or in a way you've never heard it before, and stress elements that aren't usually talked about, because it's been turned into, first of all, a lot of these people take themselves way too seriously. They have anthropologists and scientists and astrophysicists all involved in the ufology community or the cryptozoological community. However, when we get on the show, it sounds like they're plugging a book, and I would not want to do that.
No,
I want to hear about your story. Tell me something unique about you. As you know, the audience will be interested in checking things out if they're interested in the person talking about or telling them a story. And so I always, just like you do on your show, I consider the audience. I want you to have a good time. I want you to enjoy this story and try to do everything I can to, put it together in a week and deliver it.
Yeah, no. And how old's the podcast? Because you got what, just right around 30 episodes now? Yeah,
I experimented with it a couple of years ago, but only made 6 episodes. It was this summer because I am, I signed with a company that works on marketing for me, and we started officially over the summer every week as a weekly podcast.
Okay, cool.
So I started, with only six episodes or so after 2 years, and then it really started moving, I'd say, in June or July.
Yeah.
And it's been every week now since then.
That's cool. That's tough though, huh? So I was doing weekly during the shutdowns because it was easy to do weekly. Now I'm doing bi-weekly just because I'm so busy in life, and it's like I would love to do weekly, but yeah, it's tough.
Yeah, no, I didn't think I would be able to pull it off with everything I have going on, but I got it down to a science. I think I got it down really good. And obviously, I cut out a lot of my time for everything I'm doing. And I just want to, I believe in what I'm doing, and I know I can make it work. And I believe that, and I don't mind telling people, to take advantage of, in a good way, of our opportunities right now, because the film business was monopolized for so long. We were talking about this before the show. And right now, what they monopolize, the entertainment business has monopolized movies like Marvel movies and Disney films and Star Wars movies.
Yeah, like blockbuster,
right.
Super budget CGI graphics, special effects, stuff like that would be beyond the grasp,
because it's be really difficult for us to make. But what they haven't monopolized, and what we can make, these strong movies, and I don't mean boring, like Easy Rider changed the world when that came out. We could easily make a movie like that now, and not with a lot of money either. You know, we don't need it.
Yeah.
And now you have access to the world in so many different ways. So I would say if you're out there and you're making movies, just understand that you have the upper hand right now. The bigger companies, even though there's some really good movies being made by studios and sub-studios, for sure, but they can't do it like you can. And don't wait around for anyone to give you permission. Now's the time. Now's the time to rise up and go and do this thing now. You know, say something about the world now.
Yeah, whether it's documentary or fiction. It's all in your grasp now. And it's like you said, and now there's avenues of distribution that weren't as easily accessible before. Like they don't have a lock on distribution anymore, because now you can go to aggregators that'll get your stuff on any number of streaming platforms, or you can put it on your own YouTube or whatever. You know, there's a way to get it out, and the cream always rises to the top. If you do something good, it'll make its way out there.
That's the bottom line. It just make something good. Figure out what it is. Even education is free now. You know, it's like just you know, turn your head away from TikTok and all that crap, and unless you're using it to help promote your work or whatever. But pay attention to something in your soul, and then I guess, you know, I don't know. I can't tell people what to do, but you know, I just know that's the way. Otherwise, I'd be doing something else.
Yeah, yeah. So do you think you'll go back to working with networks at any point, or is it just more like if you start doing these things on your own, are they going to even have anything to offer you? I don't think so. Yeah, I'm being honest with you. Yeah, no,
I don't think so.
Yeah. I think that's important for people to hear. Like, as someone who has done it that way, some people still think that's like the only way to success is like, oh, I got to make sure I get this on, you know, Discovery.
It's not, and you know, some people say, well, you're already, you know, it's easy for you to say, Chris, you know, you already had shows with a network, so you can turn away from it now. And it's like, listen, though, you will spend years of your life to learn what I've already learned. Why would you bother when you can take the world by storm through these channels? I'm telling you, you know, like I'm being honest with you. I don't think I would collaborate with a network again unless and now we're just talking business at the end of the day, because that's all they care about. So I'm going to talk on their terms, unless they gave me a good piece of the action, full creative control, final cut, right? Yeah. And I always have an ownership in it some way, somehow. If somebody woke up on the wrong side of the bed tomorrow morning, they can't bury it. They can't take me from it. They can't tell me what to do with it. I have a say in it. And just leave me alone. Let me make the thing, and I'll deliver it on time and under budget. Yeah. If that's not the case, then no.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, and if you have success on your own, you have even more of a leg to stand on with that type of situation. Be like, man, I can just do it myself. I don't need you, and that's what they don't want to hear, right? Because
you can reach the same amount of people or more. Because think about how, if you look in the stats, how many people Tubi and Plex are reaching, and then compare it to how many people are subscribing to Discovery Plus, it's going to scare Discovery Plus, and they know it. You know. They know that more people are watching Tubi than they're watching Discovery Plus. So then it's up to you just to put a little cash into advertising, or throw it into the wind and see what happens. Yeah. But I would much rather, at this time, a wiser person going through all of it and understanding, and also having them act. I could pitch something to a network and get it made now if I wanted to, but why? It's going to be a strong vision to start. By the time it gets to the network, it's going to be watered down. Yep. Not interested in it.
No. And plus, like you said, it might not even get out to the same number of people. And if it's on a network, you're not going to be able to have that freedom to put it other places.
No. And then years of your life will be wasted. And then they own it at the end of the day. And you can't do anything about it. Yeah. So I would never want to be in that position again.
What a time to be alive, huh, man?
Yeah, man. Let's celebrate it. Why not?
I mean, we got this going on. There's so much craziness in the world. There's, it's rapid times. That's the only way I can say it's like rapid. Everything's moving fast, and it's like, sometimes you got to unplug from it too, though, a little bit, because it gets overwhelming.
Yeah, definitely unplug. Definitely enjoy your life while you have it. Be grateful for every breath. You know what I mean? Yeah. But also, I think somewhere people like us wished for something like this. And when you have it, it's a little striking, but you have it and you do your best with it now. You know, we live in a really crazy but exciting time too. Let's take advantage of the exciting part of it, harness the crazy part of it, make the best out of this thing, you know, make the best out of it.
Yeah. And I think the biggest thing too is like, get out of your bubbles, like meaning social media bubbles and where you can't talk to people anymore or that don't have the exact same opinions of you. Because you got to remember, these people are still your neighbors. They're still, your friends or family or whatever. We got to just have a little bit of common respect for each other and be able to listen and hear things out and not just argue based on bullet points that you heard from, Fox or CNN or whatever opposing media is out there, because that's causing such a divide like I've never seen before. And it's bananas, and it's.
Oh man, I know. We've seen the same thing. Some of the behavior of people, this one disagrees with this one's philosophy, and then this one dies, and the other one's just laughing about it. I mean, like, what? You people are acting worse than little kids on a playground, and I've turned my back on people that I've seen with that outright behavior. Like all of a sudden, they became hall monitors. And it was like, what is this? This is the human nature that's been written about in fiction for years. And like I said, Orwell wrote about it. Stephen King has written about it. A lot of these guys have written about this stuff, how people would behave in this type of situation.
Yeah.
And it's happened before. It happened in World War II. Sure. It's happened throughout history,
Yeah. Just to over... I don't know what the word is. Just a general question here. If you had to take a gamble on things, because this kind of got threaded in here and there, and I always think it's an interesting question and interesting thing to talk about. And you're informed in these areas. If you had to guess what's going on outside of our realm, right, of the earthly realm, do you think things people are seeing or encountering are more of an interdimensional nature or extraterrestrial nature? Or could it be both? I mean, who knows, right?
So, I think both, because I think what we've perceived, we've tried to rationalize the irrational over the years and tried to say, well, if something is in the sky, it must have come from another galaxy or another planet. And obviously for all that time, you had some of the greatest, or at least allegedly greatest minds saying, there is no other life out there, it's improbable. And then you had some of the greatest minds like Arthur C. Clarke and other people saying, probability tells me it's 100% true that not only is there intelligent life outside of the Earth, but it's infinite, because there are billions and billions of solar systems and billions of planets within those worlds, and billions of galaxies estimated. So probability tells me there are probably billions of Earth-like planets it's just like Star Trek or Star Wars somewhere out there. Yeah. And we're the last to know, or we're being monitored or whatever. Yeah. We're just one part of it. And I think interdimensional, science is starting to prove that there are other dimensions. There are multiple realities of everything.
There's been so many advancements in that, and they're basically saying, there's other dimensions. It's just like, yep.
Yeah. So going back to Bill Hicks for a second, is it possible that you and I right now are on a ride that we chose to be on?
Yeah.
That we chose this program, this adventure. Imagine when it's all done, whatever way you go, and you just wake up and you're in a room in a game room somewhere, and you get up and you're like, wait a second, and then it occurs to you were just in a game. Life, it was a very advanced game in some other dimension called life.
Yeah. And
you chose a lot of the points, but you didn't know how certain outcomes were going to work out. And you have your friend standing next to you, be like, you all right?
Man, and I think when you start thinking about interdimensional stuff, I think that's more exhilarating and frightening to me than even extraterrestrial stuff. Because I get it. Like, okay, there's another planet and it had life and life evolved and okay. But what the hell is other dimensions? Like, what is going on in other dimensions? Like, what's that all about? It's crazier to me than the thought of things going on other planets. I don't know why.
I do. Yeah. And I think throughout time and throughout history, labels have been put on things. So I think, demons, what we perceived as demons, poltergeists, things like that could be other dimensions leaking through. Doppelgangers, when you have a deja vu, it could be some other multiple connected reality that you're realizing for a minute.
Yeah. It's just more infinite. It's just infinite possibilities. It's,
Yeah. I think about this stuff a lot. Yeah. Maybe we're all collectively realizing it now, and it required us to first experience some fiction that would regard these possibilities, and then science confirming on top of that.
Yeah. It's almost like, you need the fiction to kind of open you up to it, and then the science to be like, oh yeah, no, that's right.
And it's pulling us out of the dark age of thinking.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. I don't know. Hopefully, we'll find out one way or another.
I just feel that, like, disclosure on that, like, I don't know how to, admittedly, I'm in a glasses half empty frame of mind recently. And so I don't think that the government would be that benevolent to disclose things because it's going to benefit humanity. You know what I mean? I think things are suppressed because they want to control things. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Here's a news flash for everybody. We are being led by villains. End of story.
Yeah. Well, I think, dude, we're almost at 2 hours, and I this has been an awesome conversation, and I would love to continue it. But why don't you give some plugs out for social media stuff, like or websites and stuff where people can find out more about what you have going on, because you got a ton going on, and I'll put all this stuff in the show notes too. So people, if you're listening, you don't have to remember this; just remember to go to the show notes, and I'll put all the links up there as well.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, I mean, if the spirit moves you, come and check out my podcast, Off to the Witch. It's on all the platforms like Spotify and Apple and Google and Stitcher and all that stuff, and just search Off to the Witch, and you'll find it. And then if you want to see Montauk Chronicles, I recommend you look at it on Tubi, because Tubi has so many great movies on it, and it's just easy and it's free if you're here in the States. I think it's available in Canada. And if you're outside of the U.S., check it out on something called Plex. It's available just about everywhere in the world, and you can watch Montauk Chronicles there. Go check out my YouTube channel. Follow me on some social media on Instagram. It's my last name, Garetano, Garetano 7. And man, I have a lot of new stuff coming out up ahead, and I just look forward to hearing from some of you, and I wish you well.
Absolutely, man. And does White Phosphorus Films have a website?
Yeah, that's the YouTube channel. I have to upkeep on these websites. I have the offtothewitch.com and all that stuff, but it's in the next phase. I have to upkeep all my websites. That's why I don't direct people over there just yet.
Yeah, okay. And that's the problem with this DIY stuff, man, is we got to be on top of all of it, right?
Yeah, 100%. I'm going to start to cosmetically reconfigure that stuff.
Absolutely, man. Well, dude, it was so good having you on. Hold on one second. I'm gonna shut this off now, but I'm not hanging up. All right.
All right. Thank you.
All right. Hold on.